Welcome to the Enterprise Excellence Podcast, where our purpose is to help create a better future. Learn from our world's experts how to improve your organisation sustainably. Learn how to achieve and sustain an excellence journey for yourself, others, and the planet.
And I'm your host, Brad Jevons, coming to you from Brisbane, Australia. We are proudly brought to you in association with SA Partners, a world-leading business transformation consultancy. SA Partners are a truly purposeful company focused on helping organisations achieve sustainable improvement for themselves, others, and the planet.
For the months of April and May, we are celebrating all things Agile. Over these couple of months, we're going to bring you some of the most impressive podcast guests on the topic of Agile. This is timely given our launch of the Enterprise Excellence Academy's ongoing series of Agile events focused on helping organisations deploy Agile to the whole enterprise, in any industry and in any role. Brad is delivering at least one highly practical capability building event every quarter. Our first focus is on the Agile High Performance Teams course, which offers a combined Scrum Master Product Owner accreditation certified by Dr. Jeff Sutherland's company, the Agile Education Program. We are super excited to be able to offer our listeners a free place each and every April and May to join us, either in the event of your choice or to join our community for 1 year. We host the Enterprise Excellence Community, which connects you with global experts to help sustain your journey. We really want to help create a better future for all of you, for people, profit, and the planet. To register for either or both of these offers, go to our website www.enterpriseexcellenceacademy.com and click on the giveaway button in our header. You can read a little about our community and the training that we offer there. Enter quickly to ensure you're in the next draw, and we'll look forward to e-meeting you soon. Time flies, so I'll pop the link to enter into the notes below for ease, and we'll be drawing the winner at the end of May 2023. Without further ado, let's get into the episode.
Welcome to episode 134 of the Enterprise Excellence Podcast. It is such a pleasure and honour to have a person on the show with us today who played a part in altering my trajectory in life for the better. Around mid-2015, I saw the TED Talk, How Many Rules at Work Keep You From Getting Things Done, presented by Mr. Yves Morieux. This talk shocked and inspired me. Yves Morieux is the Managing Director of Boston Consulting. He is the author of the book 6 Simple Rules, How to Manage Complexity Without Getting Complicated. Yves has also delivered another amazing TED Talk titled, As Work Gets More Complex, 6 Rules to Simplify. Let's get into the episode. Yves, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Brad.
You know, I loved your TED Talk I saw on the 6 Simple Rules, but when you're talking change, keeping it simple and easy is a great thing to do.
Exactly. But again, you know, I insist on the importance of analysis. You know, I remember, you know, usually to do this work, you do observation, you observe what is happening in the organization. You do some process mapping, the order, the sequence of decisions, actions, activities, resource allocation. We do also interviews, a specific kind of interviews. And I remember a company that was trying to improve performance, and they had used some consultants in the past. And these consultants were trying to motivate the people by using frameworks, you know, frameworks that say that work is more enjoyable, more engaging if there is variety in the tasks. You know, if there is variety, people will be engaged, and therefore they will be more productive and they will be happier. And this is based on some kind of psychological framework saying that variety at work is good in itself. And it was not very successful. So some years later, they called us, and we did with my teams, we did about 75 interviews of these people. different functions, different levels, different activities. And at some point, somebody told me, and in these interviews, we ask people questions about their work. What do you find the most interesting in your work, the most difficult, the most frustrating? How do you manage to deal with issues? With whom do you have to work, collaborate to address or to solve these issues and these interactions? Are they positive, negative? Well, you use these questions to get people's perceptions of what they do. And at some point, somebody, when I asked him the question, what do you like the most in your work? His answer was, what I like the most in my work is that it is always the same.
Yeah.
That doesn't fit any framework. What I like is that it is always the same. And at the beginning, I wrote it down and then when we were analyzing the data, what people said, triangulating the data, I stumbled across this sentence that I had not noticed when I was taking notes during the interview. And I said, but what does that mean? How can I make sense of this sentence? And then we looked at all the other interviews, data, triangulating, and we understood that for various reasons, many people in this organization were immigrants, and they didn't speak the local language. And they had a kind of color scheme, color code to operate the machines. Yellow, green, red means the pace at which you need to operate the machine, when you need to call maintenance, for interventions, do preventive maintenance. And that's very important for performance, because of course, if you don't synchronize production, the rate, the pace at which you operate the machines, and maintenance, you have idle times, breakdowns, or just insufficient productivity. And therefore, as soon as there is variety in the work, these people are lost. So we were able to understand what was, the real work of the company, the real organization, which is very different from, textbooks, frameworks. People love variety for the sake of variety. No, it depends what is important to them in this situation, in this environment. And then with this insight, you can come up with useful recommendations as opposed to the frameworks that we are based on preconceived assumptions that are often wrong. And this is what I would say I find the most interesting in this work, which is to find the truth for the good of the company and the good of the people. And in the end, by the way, and that is perhaps a recent discovery over the last few years, that what is good for performance, for productivity, for speed to market, for quality, for innovation, is always good for satisfaction at work, for engagement. There is no contradiction between productivity, performance, and satisfaction. They are the two sides of the same coin. If you do it well, when you improve satisfaction, you improve productivity. And I am not talking about a causal relationship. Perhaps there is a causal relationship, but this is not what I am talking about. I am not saying when people are more satisfied, they are more productive, therefore you improve performance. No, that I'm not saying. I'm just saying that they are the two sides of the same coins. It is simultaneity. And simultaneously, when you improve one, you improve the other. If you do it well, if you address the root causes, you improve both simultaneously, I would say.
I love it, Yves, the whole concept of seek to understand where it's important, which is where we're actually producing value. And then from there, make decisions. But it's so true that, is there many people that would go to work and not want to achieve the best outcome they can within the climate they're in?
You're right. People don't wake up in the morning saying, today I will have an unexpected problem and, I don't know, delay the schedule or delay a train if you are a railway, delay a plane if you are an airline, or no. People want to are dealing with issues, what they are dealing with with what we call problems, at work. And we need to understand these. And as I said earlier, these are usually not correlated with structure, procedures in a simple way. It is not mechanical, it is not linear, it is systemic, and we need to understand these systems, this system at work that produces or does not produce performance, and then work on the system.
Yvonne, I've got a question for you, because I know a lot of your talks, cooperation has really come through strongly, and I love it. The collaboration, cooperation, those key elements. And I see in organizations myself, I see this really break between divisions. It can really break between divisions or departments. Say, let's talk a factory floor again, on the maintenance to operations. It can be broken. But also between leadership, the whole cooperation and flow of communication can be broken. Do you mind exploring some of your understanding and insights and some things you've seen there? Because we've said that people come to work, they want to do a great job, they want to produce quality and productivity, but you get these breaks in cooperation and collaboration that can really hurt it.
Very good. Well, if you take an executive committee, which is the top leadership of the company around the CEO, what I have realized over the years is that this is an important body. It is not just sitting together for 4 hours every week or every 2 weeks to exchange ideas or to share what we are doing. Because if it is only that, usually what happens is that when the other speaks, you do your email more or less discreetly, but you don't listen because it's useless. And again, people are rational. They are not perfectly rational, but there is what Herbert Simon, Nobel Prize, 1978, said, bounded rationality. It's not perfect, but it's not equal to zero. And therefore, if it is not useful to me, I will not listen. So it's a waste of time. But in reality, it's very important, an executive committee, leadership, working together on the most important, on the most complex problems of the company. This is the role of an executive team, leadership team, executive committee, to work together on the most complex problems of the company. And if we work in silos, we don't work together on the most complex problems of the company. And sometimes it is a mental revolution, a Copernican revolution for some executive teams to realize that they are not here to listen to each other in a kind of passive way, but to work together on the most complex problems. And why is this happening? Because, as you said, you have these silos, but why these silos? It's because the company has failed to identify the collective issues on which they need to work together. And this, again, takes work. It takes work to realize on what do we need to work together. Problems, important issues, challenges don't fall from the sky, all baked, ready to be solved. Framing problems, and posing what is the problem. Very often I say the problem is the problem. The problem is what is the problem? It doesn't, in science, in physics, in hard sciences, problems are already the result of some conceptual work. Problems don't fall all prepared from the sky. No, what is the right problem we need to work on? Framing the right issues, takes work. And this is sometimes our role also, to work with the CEO and the executive committee, helping them identify the challenges on which they need to work together. And this will break the silos, of course, because we have the collective stake that we need to address. But without this collective stake, that we need to address. Of course, we will work in silos because we feel that we are much more effective, efficient, leading our division, business unit, department, market, geography, than exchanging ideas. You know, we are not a club just to exchange ideas. We are here to work, but on what? We don't know. So then we don't work together. So this is part also of our job with teams, with executive teams, to help them identify these collective challenges. You know, what we call sometimes their must-win battles. You know, the must-win battles that we need to address together.
That really resonates strongly, because you know, you mentioned earlier that an organization is a systemic connection of elements, and if you don't have the executive who are working as a team to overcome the biggest systemic problems, exactly, then the organization's not going to go forward.
Of course. Absolutely. Yeah, it's the top inspires, of course, what happens in the company, in the organization. And if we work in silos at the top, we will work in silos everywhere. Huh? And those who will bear the consequences are the poor middle manager. You know, the middle managers between the executive team, the top, and operations, frontline management. These mid managers, very often they are called sometimes I have heard that the frozen middle, you know.
Yeah.
But and then we tend to blame these people, or we do delayering, we eliminate some layers. And sometimes it is like throwing the baby with the bathwater, because as you said, organizations tend to be very complicated with solid reporting lines, dotted lines, and the committees, the metrics, scorecards, reporting, control, and so on. And if you think about it, this maximum complicatedness, where does it happen? You know, what is the area in the organization that has the densest, the most dense, the most densely tighted knots of complicatedness? It is in the middle. At the top, there is no complicatedness because, all the lines start from the top. Where do they cross? In the middle, because at the bottom, you have less complicatedness. People who operate the machines, they don't have a solid reporting line and a dotted line. No, the machine cannot work in a dotted way. Huh? So it's now in the middle, you have this complicatedness. And this prevents, and this is why these people suffer so much. And this depends also on decisions made at the top. Yet, middle management is fundamental for performance, for productivity, quality, speed, reliability, innovation. Mid managers are fundamental. They are the intermediate, the link between operations and strategy and direction.
Yeah, but I'm guessing if they're living within a crazy systemic structure and they're dealing with fires they can't deal with and problems, and they're overburdened, they're not going to have time and headspace to put to those great things that you said that they can do.
Exactly. And, earlier, before we started the recording, we were talking about the COVID crisis, the lockdown. These mid-managers were very often the most reluctant to move to remote working on Teams, Zoom, WebEx, whatever. And again, people using preconceived frameworks said, yeah, but these mid-managers, they are a bit conservative, narrow-minded, retrograde. That's why they resist. No, it is because these people have so little room of maneuver, so little power between the dotted, the full, solid, bold, solid reporting lines, that one of the few levers left to them is physical proximity with people. Yeah? Physical proximity to get things done. The office is, looking at what is happening, knocking at the door, asking the people, talking at the coffee machine, is one of the few levers left to them. And with the lockdown, this lever was removed. This resource was removed. So they were left with all the constraints without the resource. And therefore, the rational behavior, of course, is to ask people to come back to the office as soon as possible, or even during the lockdown, not because they were stupid, but because they were intelligent. That's usually what you find. If people do what they do, it's not because they are stupid, as we often think. No, it's because they are intelligent. They adjust to a system that we have failed to understand, to perceive. And then when you have understood, this is what we call insight earlier, everything becomes easier to address in a minimally sufficient way without complicated solutions that are often counterproductive, not only because they are complicated, but also because they are just off the mark, like saying we need to give them variety at work. Yeah? We need variety. Why? Because variety is good, according to where does it come from? The Tavistock Institute. Okay. No. Great. The Tavistock Institute is terrific, did great work. I have nothing against the Tavistock Institute, just to illustrate some sources of information and frameworks.
I was just thinking, when you talked about that element, the amount of context switching and variability and chaos that could bring to a factory environment would be off the charts.
Absolutely.
The one thing that I get a lot of factory people just dread the most is constant schedule changes and coming through. They know it causes carnage. And
exactly.
The conversation is really good because we're talking about the critical part that the senior executives play in this, because they own that role to really help improve this system, this whole complex organism that is at work there. And really, like you're saying, it can be one or two things to focus on to really turn the performance. One question I've got, and I hear this a lot, is the impact senior leadership have on culture, or leadership have on culture. And there's that saying, leadership shadow and the shadow of culture. What is your view on that and your thoughts on that, just to bring that cultural bit into play?
Yes. So, right. Culture is a fundamental driver of decisions, actions, behaviors, therefore performance, because performance is just the addition of behaviors. We tend to forget that, but performance is what it is because people do what they do. Behaviors are performance in the making, to put it in another way. And culture, of course, shapes behaviors and mindsets. What I agree, the leadership team has an important influence on culture, but at the same time, this influence is constrained. A leadership team cannot decree overnight a cultural change. Okay, we can decree a new slogan, a new poster to put on the walls, new flyers, videos talking about sustainability, diversity, inclusion, equity on paper. But in real life, in the real culture, it is much more difficult, and it takes longer if we are really talking about real culture. Culture can evolve, but seriously, to me, very often I have heard people asking me to help them change the culture, and I told them, look, if you are really talking about culture, behaviors and mindsets, it cannot take less than 3 to 5 years, and it's closer to 5 than to 3. And forget about 6 months and I want a new culture because we have a new strategy. No, it's so you're right. The leadership team plays a very important role, but this role is constrained by many elements, and moving these elements is possible. We have many examples, but it takes persistence, insights, and time. It's
I'm guessing too, Eva, it'd take a lot of constancy of effort too, because you could have, it's a long time, takes a lot of effort, but if you have some massive stumbles in the way, it could set you back a lot too, if there's not that consistency of experience and behaviors that people have.
Exactly. No, there are some organizations that evolved thanks to a crisis. Without the crisis, they would not have evolved. Sometimes, I mean, there are some organizations where the crisis, it could be a financial, economic, operational crisis with a disaster, a big accident, an explosion, whatever, massive product defects, led to cultural change because there was this sudden moment where the company was facing complexity, what I call complexity, that has nothing to do with complicatedness. Complexity are the problems we have to address to create value for stakeholders, customers, shareholders, employees, legal authorities, compliance, regulators, and so on. This is complexity. And because of the crisis, these companies were facing huge complexity, an outburst of complexity that outpaced their ability to complicate and formalize. They could not, if you take the example of the COVID, which was a huge crisis for some companies, not for all in the same way. They didn't have a chief COVID officer. They could not create a COVID process. They had to face complexity. They didn't have the time to create complicatedness. And this is the issue. To summarize everything we have said, we need to enable the organization to face complexity. Very often, we use the organization to deal with internal complicatedness, the structure, process, systems. A crisis forces people to face complexity. And because people are adaptable, intelligent, then they find ways to address the issue. So this is why sometimes a crisis is good for transformation, because it forces people's intelligence to apply to complexity as opposed to be confined to deal with complicated internal procedures and processes and structure.
And Yves, I know with the topic we're talking on, and typically our life, we're dealing with our day-to-day, the complexity of our day-to-day, the complexity at work. But there is a bigger picture, and I learned this from you with the statistics you were talking about global productivity. There's a whole thing there's a whole thing about what are we going to leave for our next generation by way of their position in life and the amount they can buy and what can they own and all this position. Now, I'm not saying that it's easy for us as humans to think of that bigger picture, but do you mind explaining global productivity trends and this sort of bigger picture of what's going on with this?
Yes. Basically, I will come back to, Paul Krugman, Nobel Prize in Economics, once wrote, productivity is not everything, but on the long run, it is almost everything. Almost. So basically, our standards of living, our ability to have access to education, vaccinations, antibiotics, water, bridges, infrastructure depends on productivity improvement, productivity growth. And by the way, Paul Krugman wrote that in a book that he titled The Years of Diminishing Expectations, because that was in the mid-90s, at a time where US productivity was really slowing down in an alarming way. And then productivity improved again, labor productivity improved in the US. And everybody said, no, Krugman is wrong. No need for diminishing expectations in terms of standards of living because productivity is back. But this didn't last many years. This didn't last many years. Only around 2000, And then again, the slowdown. If you have a long-term perspective, productivity, in summary, to summarize, the productivity growth rate has been divided by 10 over the last 50 years. Let's say it was 5% per annum in the 15 largest European economies. Now it is less than 0.5 on average, divided by 10. And you have the same pattern, more or less accentuated in Japan, in the US, in Brazil, in Russia, in China, even in China. And so this is the real issue. And this is what I have been working on now for almost 15 years.
It's a key topic because I think we all care about our kids and our grandkids and that to come, don't we? But like, even I know back the 5% year-on-year growth in the 50s meant great outcomes for the next generation. What does getting below sub 0.5% mean?
You're right. That's a good point. So, again, if you want to have some numbers in mind, when productivity grows 3% per annum, you double the standards of living every generation. Every generation is twice as well off as its parents with a 3% productivity growth rate, which means that, if the family in the past had 2 children and to send one child to college, the other child has to go to work because we cannot afford to send both children to a college or university. Well, the next generation, when they have 2 children, will send the 2 kids to university and college because productivity increased by 3% per annum over one generation. When productivity grows 1% per annum, 1%, it takes 3 generations to double the standards of living. And in this process, many people will be less well off than their parents. When you are at 0.5%, well, it will take 6 generations to double the standards of living. So forget, and people will not be able to have a house, a flat. They will have to share a flat. Even if they have a job, the 3, the 4 kids freshly graduated and starting to work will not be able to afford their own home for their family. They will have to share together. We are close to a zero-sum game, which means that the only way to improve standards of living for some people is to degrade standards of living for other people. The only way to open a new hospital, a new school, there is to close another school, another hospital somewhere else. The only way to maintain a bridge somewhere or to build a new bridge is to stop maintaining another bridge. And then the bridge will collapse. And we see bridges starting to collapse. And it is not the laws of gravity that makes bridges collapse. It is just the productivity slowdown. And despite all the new technologies, we talk about the internet, social media, ERP systems, the cloud, digital technologies, and this is Solo's paradox, another Nobel Prize, Robert Solow, 1987, who was the first one to say, we see computers everywhere, at a travel agent, I don't know, an airline counter, except in the productivity statistics. And we see the computer age everywhere, except because the productivity statistics started to slow down, I would say even in the mid-70s. Then there was a rebound around 2000, but only in the US, for different reasons, I don't want to, but there was, and this did not happen in Europe, by the way, because these productivity improvements in the US were based on some specific issues or that could not happen in Europe. And today, we need to learn new ways to use technology, because if there is this productivity slowdown, despite all these innovations, it is for 2 reasons, mainly. As I said, complicatedness. this complicatedness kills productivity. People spend their time writing reports because they have to report on more and more scorecards and metrics and KPIs. They have to plan. The plan never works because of volatility. So they have to unplan, replan, explain the variance. They spend their time in meetings because they have to coordinate with more and more functions. So in the end, there is little time to face complexity. Most of the time is used dealing with complicatedness, the internal bureaucracy. Reason one. And reason two, we misuse technology. Technology is used in the service of complicatedness, not to face complexity. Look at the way we use our systems, just to organize meetings, requests in an easier way. So we use technology to make complicatedness easier to swallow, to digest, and then we have an indigestion, you say in English, hopefully. At least in French it works. So that's the counterproductive use of technology. So to me, our future generations, we are at a crossroad, seriously. Either we learned better ways to use technology in organizations that stop getting complicated in an attempt to face the complexity of the environment, and then we are great. Then there is a new rebound in productivity, or we don't, and then we have the years of diminishing expectations, as Paul Krugman was saying.
And that's the beginning. To me, they're the two big purposeful burning platforms that, man, we can shift some change, but the challenge is breaking out of the chaos of our day-to-day to then be focused and actually put the effort on this bigger outcome.
And, again, the work I'm doing on productivity today shows that when you improve productivity in the right way, you also improve sustainability. There is no trade-off. Very often we think we have a trade-off. I have to produce these goods plus produce the ways to avoid pollution by these goods. No, it's not that. Rethink the way you work, the way you design, the way you produce, and then you will simultaneously increase sustainability and productivity. Again, this is a false duality, like satisfaction at work. For all the important things on earth, there is no trade-off. There is no contract. We need to break the compromise. And when you break, and there are always ways to break the compromise. And when you break the compromise, performance, productivity, and sustainability, and satisfaction at work, you unleash new value. And this value will fuel profitable growth for all stakeholders, including society, the environment. But again, this takes insight. As we said at the beginning, it takes insight to find the way in which these two objectives can converge and reinforce each other, and so on.
Yeah, but I just love the conversation where it's the technology's there. It's just how do we use it to drive the right behavior, to get productivity gain, quality gains, environmental gains, safety gains, the win-wins that you and I know are there, and create a better future for our kids and our grandkids and those to come.
Exactly.
Mate, I'm with you.
You are talking. Please, sorry, Brad.
No, after you.
No, I was just saying, you were talking at some point about my TED talk, how too many rules at work keeps you from getting things done or getting work done. Where I use the relay race runners, the relay race, and the fastest runners individually don't win the race. It is an average team individually that wins the race because collectively they have a better handover, a better cooperation. To use a simple analogy about using technology, suppose we were putting digital technology and AI in the real service of the runners. Basically, what would it mean? It would mean put on the stick, the baton that they pass from one to the other, using sensors, connectivity, some kind of learning algorithm that would tell the runners, look, you will pass the baton in 2 seconds, given your usual speed, given your current speed, given your distance between you and the next runner, given the speed, the location of the next runner. Now you need to throw your hand to pass the baton. You need to shout to say you are coming. You need to change hand. This would be IT put in the service of real work. Today, if we continue this analogy, what does it do, IT? Again, multitasking. IT would ask the runners to help seat the people in the stadium and to sell tickets and to book their dressing room with a kind of office flex space reservation system. So again, you see, IT is used to create multitasking, vertical loading of admin tasks onto the work, as opposed to be put in the service of the real job, the real work. Yeah. You know, so that's the way we use IT today, not in the service of the passing of the baton, but to make people contribute to seating the audience in the stadium, selling tickets, and reserving their dressing room.
Yeah. And they're context switching all over the place, and they've got disruptions left, right, and center every 30 seconds, and there's no way they can run the race. They're just spending a lot of their day cleaning their email inbox, which is just...
But the good news is that there is a lot of potential, you know. Yeah. At some point, these new ways of working, they are emerging, and then there is light at the end of the tunnel. So, you know, when I said we are at a crossroad, I think the probability of a brighter future is greater than the probability of a darker future.
I love it, Yves. I love it. I'll be working towards that too, mate, with everything I do. So thank you. Yves, how can people get hold of your books, reach out, or get in touch with Boston Consulting? What's the best path that they do from hearing this episode?
So people can happily write to you, write to me, you know, my Morieux.yves, Yves at bcg.com. And then we will send them the book or tell them how to buy the book. You know, you can find it at a local bookshop in New York. I saw it the other day, or of course using platforms to order it from Harvard Business Review Press, the publisher. And then, of course, we have offices in, if I remember well, about 90 cities around the world. So we have always a green light. Green is the color of somewhere.
Oh, thank you so much, mate. And thank you for all you've done and all you'll continue to do to help us create a better future, mate. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Bud, for your time. Take care.
Cheers, Yves.
Bye-bye.
Another cracker of an episode. Oh my goodness, we are so lucky to be able to speak to these global experts. Yves, thank you so much for your time today, and we'll look forward to recording another podcast in the future. We just love Yves' consultancy approach with Boston Consulting. Seek to understand from the front line and frontline leadership, and then work with them to improve the critical few things. Thanks again, Yves, for all the inspiration that you give to us and to the world, and we look forward to helping create that brighter future with a swing in productivity again, using technology for the better. And can I gently remind you to enter our giveaway that will be drawn at the end of May 2023 to join us in either our Enterprise Excellence community or in a training event of your choice. Register at our website www.enterpriseexcellenceacademy.com and click on the giveaway button in our header. You can click on the form there and enter either or both of those offerings. You can read a little about our community and the training that we offer there. Enter quickly to ensure that you're in the next draw, and we'll look forward to e-meeting you soon. The link to enter is in the notes below for your reference, and thanks for listening everyone and helping to create a better future. Bye for now.